Right, hello, welcome to the third and final part of TLW Time Team, part 3, on Gerard Houllier. I can't even say the full name of the podcast. It's going to be a long one, John, by the sounds of it. I'm already making mistakes and we've only just got going. I think, John, before we get going, and welcome, by the way, I think we should probably mention like real life, as we have been doing our current life, should I say. This is going to be a very, very long episode if I keep screwing up. There's a lot of angst at the moment about no incomings. We've had the Tour of America, and we had Tommy Elphick at centre-half in training a few days ago. How do you feel about it, mate? Because I'm at the point where I'm starting to tear out which little hair, which is voluntary by the way, which little hair I have. I'm starting to tear it out in big clumps because I'm getting very frustrated, and I think we're leaving ourselves well short and underselling our excellent brand new manager who needs to hit the ground running for a multitude of reasons.
Yeah, it is worrying, Tana. I'm not going to lie. It's total opposite to last summer in so many ways, isn't it? I mean, last summer things were happening at rate or knots, really, wasn't it? Whether you agree with the transfer policy from last summer is one thing, but at least there was incomings. But now the squad is like woefully short in so many areas. It's what is it now? Is it 2.5 weeks? Is it till the season starts? Is it, or 3 weeks?
21st, I think.
So yeah, that's 2.5 weeks, isn't it? And we've brought one major player in so far. So yeah, I mean, I am concerned. Just the new manager's not being given the right tools to be successful. Obviously, make a good fist of it. I'm sure he will, but his methods are probably going to take a while to come to fruit anyway. Fruition.
2-1 to me now, John. You've halved the deficit.
Yeah, I did eat a banana just before we come on, so that's why. Now, come to fruition. But I mean, if you look at his Bournemouth track record, he got off to a slow start there, and after the way we performed last season for the 90% of it, whatever it was, it's not going to be a quick fix anyway. We look short of goals to me. Obviously, you've got to hope Isaac hits the ground running. That's debatable whether he will. And yeah, I mean, you're looking at the defence. I mean, you've got like a young centre-back who's Canate's replacement, and there's no guarantees. You've got a creaking Virgil. Well, not creaking as such, that's probably the wrong word to use, but he's 35. Aging, aging's the right word. Sorry, Virgil, if you ever listen, which I know you won't, but there you go.
2-2.
Yeah, so he's Canate's replacement, Xhaka, and to be honest with you, you don't really challenge for the major trophies with that type of defender in the back four, like coming in his first season. So with the 35-year-old who's probably going to have to play most of the games again. So yeah, it's obviously you've got the situation at right back as well. That's a problem. Conor Bradley's been injured for 8 months now, is it?
Yeah, it's the end of the year, wasn't it?
Yeah, so early January or whatever it was, and there's been nothing brought in. It's clearly obvious that that position was needed. Joe Gomez is injured again, and he can't be relied on as as a brilliant footballer that he is. So yeah, there's plenty of concerns. The midfield's a concern. It looks slow, lightweight, powder puff. Needs more legs and energy in there. And obviously you've got I know Mo wasn't at his best last season, but just that leadership, that experience, the guile, and obviously Robbo's gone as well. So I mean, there's not many of the old guard left apart from Virgin Ali, and it is slightly concerning. Obviously still a few weeks left, so you've just got to hope that we pull a few irons out the fire pretty sharpish.
Yeah. That echoes everything. I mean, I would argue as well that I don't think Tsimikas is the answer either, and we should probably look to upgrade on him as well. But we've already got enough to do, and we're not going to do enough.
Well, but if you look at it, and the squad has been downgraded in so many areas, not just
absolutely.
left back. It's like the defence have just touched on there. Whatever Xhaka is, I mean, Kanate is an experienced French international. He's in his prime of his career. He's got moved to Real Madrid. I mean, I know you can say about how he performed last season, but he's largely been a good player for us over the years. You know, we had his issues last season, some personal problems off the pitch with his dad passing away. So, I mean, you've got to take that into consideration as well, haven't you? And he was a little bit better as the season went on. I thought, not amazing, but, you know, slightly better than he had been in the first part of the season. So that's a downgrade for a start. And then the left-back situation with Robbo and Kerkers. Now we've got Kerkers and Costas. You know, I like Costas, you know, he's a good lad. Good player to have around. You know, he seems popular. You know, and you need characters like that, but you know, when it's coming that he's going to play some games by the looks of it, that's another area you've got to be concerned about. Left back, you don't know how Kerkers is going to perform. You'd hope with Areola he'll get the best out of him like he did at Bournemouth, so that is one slight positive, hopefully. But yeah, as I say, there's so many other areas where, you know, we look woefully short to me.
Yeah, completely right, mate. And there's an argument to be made for the fact that we possibly needed another goalkeeper as well, because there are questions about Mamardashvili. I think he probably deserves another season, but Iraola will take a look at him and possibly know straight away he's not going to deliver what I need. He might know that straight away, because he's not the best with his feet, is he? You know, he's. I think Mick, who sits near me, called him Simon Mignolet, and as time goes on, the more and more I see of that, I actually think that might actually be correct.
Yeah,
so.
It's just because of what we've been used to, though, isn't it? I mean, if Alisson Becker was never a thing, how would he be viewed? I mean, if he went from Mignolet to Mamardashvili, saying, oh, there's a bit of a gap between them, but it's just because of Alisson, isn't he? He's one of the best ever for us. You know, you can argue like Ray Clements, or, you know, I don't think anyone will be knowing how good Elijah Scott was back in the day. I mean, if there is someone out there listening to the pod who's alive when Elijah Scott was playing, and brilliant. But you know, it's probably going to be Ray Clements, isn't he? Who's sort of the between him and Alisson, isn't it?
Yeah, Eddie would call him Elijah Wood, probably.
Yeah.
If we thanks for listening to this episode of TLW. We'll be back next week. No, we're only joking. We're now actually going to start on the Houllier stuff, which is what we know you're all tuning in for. So we left at the end of the last episode, which I thought was absolutely brilliant. Long, but brilliant. We covered the 2001 season incredibly extensively. I know that at the time, John, I felt that team was going to take the step up to the next level. Obviously, we was competing against a United team that had sleepwalked to the title the season before, almost, and an Arsenal team which would eventually win the league in this particular season. But it felt like we was primed to be that third challenger, and if one of those two had a terrible season, we would be the ones to step up and take the crown. How did you feel about it? I thought we were ready.
Yeah. I mean, in light of what happened, obviously, in the May just before, I was as confident as you've ever been in our generation as Liverpool supporters. I mean, obviously, you're still looking at United at that. They went big that summer, didn't they? They went for Van Nistelrooy and Varane. You're like, Jesus Christ, that's what we're up against now. I can't remember who Arsenal signed. Would they have signed Wiltord that summer, maybe? I think
that was the Wiltord season, yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, Arsenal was still, you know, he still had Leeds in the equation. Obviously, they unravelled pretty quickly, you know, a year or so later. You know, so you know, you're confident that we'd be in the mix at least anyway. You know, we were solid, secure. You know, it's one or two areas you look at and think, yeah, we could upgrade there maybe. But you know, we had the best forward in Europe at the time, who was obviously going to win the Ballon d'Or a few months later. And then obviously Sammy and Stefan at the back, you know, they were as good as anything in terms of what they brought to us. And Gerard was coming into his own. So yeah, we had some absolute top players, and you just thought a little sprinkling here and there, one or two additions, and we'd be, you know, challenging in the mix for the season.
So that's the summer. We compared to the season before, we didn't go on a particularly big splurge. We spent a lot of money on goalkeepers, but we'll come to that as a separate point of order. We brought in until the deadline. Well, it wasn't the deadline day then, was it? No, it still wasn't. We had to sign Kirkland and Dudek because we were getting sued by, I think it was Feyenoord, wasn't it? Who were going to sue us for backing out of the deal. Yeah. So we let's just say for now we signed Risa for $4 million from Monaco, and Milan Baroš for 3.2 million from Baník Ostrava. Risa in particular was a very, very good price. He was what he was, and by the end of his time at the club, he was quite a problem, to be honest. But he exploded into life. He was a very, very good addition.
Yeah, he was. He hit the ground running like early on, didn't he? Yeah, I think he scored against Everton early on, didn't he?
Yeah, he scored it was 3 or 4 games into the season, wasn't it?
Yeah, he just brought that energy to the left-hand side that, you could argue that we missed because Carragher played left back, didn't he, in the treble season for the majority of it. So, so we hit the ground running well, Risa, so, it was a good addition. But the actual season, I mean, we had all this stuff with Fowler early on, didn't we, going into the season, with the whole fallout with Phil Thompson. It was just a little bit of a cloud, and you felt like Fowler's time was coming to an end at the club. There was murmurings, we touched on the last pod, the year before, Houllier, would have been happy to sell him. And then you had the fallout in the training ground with Phil Thompson and Fowler refusing to apologise, and it just left a little bit of a cloud going into the start of the season. I think we just won the Charity Shield as it was, then not the Community Shield, beat United, which, it's people say it's a glorified friendly, but you're beating the champions, our biggest rivals. Going into the season, it just gives you that a little bit of a boost again, and we win the Super Cup as well, beating Bayern Munich. I mean, I think we were 3-0 up, weren't we, if memory serves me right?
Yeah, we were hanging on by the end.
Hanging on by the end. So, I mean, we've won 5 trophies, after a bit of a famine, shall we say. It was good to sort of be in the mix for those trophies, because you've got to be successful to play those matches, haven't you, ultimately? Yeah. So
Houllier said that quite often, actually, didn't he? Like, these are the games,
5 trophies.
These are the games that you want to win because they're the game. Or maybe it was Rafa who said this. Actually, one of them said these are the games.
It's probably Houllier. I can imagine Houllier. Rafa would never say that. I just can't picture him saying that. I mean,
like these are the games that you want to win because you've had to win something to qualify for this.
Yeah.
My overarching memory of the Super Cup wasn't so much the match. It was on a Friday night at Monaco, like it used to be, and I just remember the microphone was dead close to the crowd, and we'd just gone 3-0 up, and I could hear someone singing "Who Let the Krauts Out." It just made me laugh, and I've never forgotten it. Don't know why.
That's a good one. Yeah, no, it was a good way to start the season, though. But I say the whole Fowler situation, just to put a little bit of a damper on the start of the season. And to be honest with you, at that point, Fowler was starting to annoy me a little bit because we touched on the last pod about. It was just something that come into my head after that pod. We beat United 1-0 away. First time in a decade or whatever it was, and Fowler's warming up the whole half in front of the fans, like just jogging up and down the touchline and all that, and fans were singing his name, and he just totally ignored the fans. And I always remember being annoyed at it at the time, and I think at that point, you could just sense something wasn't right, and obviously the whole fall out on the training ground, it was only ever going to go one way. As Houllier had the sort of power behind him then to basically call the shots. When he first took over, he'd never been able to have done that. I mean, no, he did it with some other players like Paul Ince, etc. But Fowler was like the local lad made good. The jewel in the crown, so to speak. And but Houlier's not seen the best of him. So he's probably thought he is expendable in a way that Michael Owen and Heskey in his eyes, weren't expendable, and ultimately, we got what he wanted in the end.
John, you're talking about not seeing the best of. We didn't sign Harry Kewell for another year or two. We won't have any of that parlance, not just yet anyway. Just before we tuck into the season, can you tell me who had the number one song on the 18th of August 2001 when the season kicked off? It's a rotter. It's a rotter.
A rotter of a song, okay.
Yeah.
Do you know, I was working away at the time, and I always remember Atomic Kitten were like, they were sort of like a thing at the time.
It's not Atomic Kitten.
Shaggy.
It wasn't Shaggy.
No. The Angel. So that was Shaggy, wasn't it? Angel. Girl,
I think,
you're my angel.
Yeah.
You're my darling. It wasn't that, no.
No, it wasn't that. No. Do you want me to tell you?
Go on.
21 Seconds by Sir So Solid Crew.
I wouldn't even know that song. I've never heard of it.
I just see So Solid Crew, so I don't need to know anything more. It was shite.
Right.
What was the top film on the 18th of August 2001?
Well, I say this every single podcast we do. I want to say Mission Impossible Summer Blockbuster again.
Yeah, you should have guessed that Robbie Williams being number one as well, John. It was Planet of the Apes.
Okay, oh, that's good. They're good. Yeah, fair play.
And I know you won't know the answer to this, so I'll just tell you. The WWF champion was Stone Cold Steve Austin. There you have it. Right, so if we look to the start of the season, you mentioned there was a kind of cloud forming over Fowler. We actually got off to a pretty terrible start. We actually lost 2 of our first 3 games. I understand, like, we started on the 18th and then we didn't play again until the 27th, and I know why that is. It's because of the Super Cup. We beat West Ham on the first day of the season 2-1, and then this is a very, very important game that we talk about. We lost 2-1 at Bolton to a 90th minute Dean Holdsworth goal, which was an absolutely awful, terrible goalkeeping mistake by Sander Westerveld, and his feet didn't touch the floor. Out he went, gone. I remember it cutting to him. The camera cut to him in a game of, it would have been, because I'm sure there was an international break after that game. I want to say it was the I think it was the Villa game that we lost at Anfield. We had a nightmare. Gerard got sent off.
Yeah, Boateng tackle.
Yeah, Villa went on to win the game 3-1. I remember the camera cutting to a very, very, very angry-looking Sander Westerveld in the stands. He threw one in. It was a terrible mistake. And as I said, I did have a few kind of concerns about him at that point, but I didn't think he was going to get bounced. But Houllier could be very, very ruthless. Sander Westerveld, you are the weakest link. Goodbye.
Yeah, I mean, you think about it. I mean, he was just part of the treble, cup treble winning side, and he was just okay, wasn't he? I mean, he wasn't going to reinvent the wheel in terms of goalkeeping, but it wasn't one of those positions I thought we've got to strengthen in that. But I don't obviously know what goes on behind the scenes, and Houllier, I mean, it must have been in his mind throughout the summer, but to do it when he did after making that mistake, I mean, because you would have thought a new goalkeeper coming in would have been a summer movement, like a summer transfer, but it ended up, I mean, was it like a snap decision after that game? I wouldn't know, I'm not too sure, but as you say, his feet didn't touch, and he was out the door in no time, wasn't he? I mean, obviously the whys and the wherefores of the 2 goalkeepers we signed. It's a bit of a mess, shall we say, but that was Houllier, as I say, had the power to sort of wield the axe however he saw fit at that point, didn't he?
Yeah, he'd earned the right to with the success. Obviously, there wouldn't have been many questions from the fans about this one, and it was a terrible way to lose a game. A game that we looked like we could have gone on to win because we scored an equaliser after 66 minutes, but we didn't quite go on to win it, and then we ended up losing it. And I just, it was a shocker. It was an absolute shocker. We then just to cover it, because you've mentioned it, we signed Dudek and Kirkland on the same day. Dudek for about 4.85 million and Kirkland for 6 million approximately. We signed them both on the 31st of August, which was the day after my birthday, for anyone who cares. It was like, what what was going on. It was this kind of, okay, we've got our goalkeeper, we've got our backup goalkeeper as well. But it's not like Dudek was particularly old when we signed him, because normally you'd look at a signing like that and go, okay, well, there's the future number one, and there's the current number one.
He was only about 28, wasn't he, when we signed him, I think?
Yeah, he wasn't that old. Now, I didn't know anything about him. I'd seen enough of Chris Kirtland and thought, the guy's 9'12", he's massive, he'd probably be a good signing for us. It didn't quite ever work out that way for him, but Dudek played a lot of the games this season. In total, he only played about 4 games, if I remember rightly. Kirkland, he didn't play very many games at all.
I remember him playing one against Galatasaray in the Champions League that season, and I think he kept us in the game. He made some unbelievable saves. I remember that's just one game that I can remember him playing. Yeah, but as I say, Dudek came in. His first game was the Villa game, and he didn't do anything wrong as such. But I don't know. At first, he's never judged off a debut, but I was a bit unsure after his first game. But he did, to be fair to him, he settled in really quickly, and he was really good that season. Dudek, I thought he was probably one of our better players throughout the season. I think the fans took to him relatively quickly, and he was a really good goalkeeper.
He for 2 or 3 seasons he was, and then he started having a wobbly spell, and Diego Forlan finished him off.
Yeah,
and I know we went on to win the European Cup in the dramatic circumstances, but that was an outlier. That game, I actually thought he became quite dodgy towards the end.
Even in Istanbul, he was dodgy though as well. I mean,
there's a couple of crosses that he came flying out for.
Yeah, I mean, obviously everyone remembers the save and that. He saved the Shevchenko and the whole penalty shootout thing, but he was dodgy in the game. I mean, he never looked secure with them. But yeah, I mean, just going off tangent, that's a few years later than that. But he was a good sign. I mean, he did, had a bit of calmness that he didn't give us in later years, but it felt like he always looked secure and safe, and I don't remember him making any risks that season. It felt like he was one of the better goalkeepers in the league anyway.
Yeah, and we'd already bounced out Ziege at this point, by the way, and if you could pick one club to offload him to who would pay the money for, see big name player sign big name player, that club would be Spurs, exactly. So we made a 2 million loss on him. I was really excited when we signed him, but unfortunately when we did get our hands on him, we just found out that he was very slow and quite lazy, quite frankly. So once the goalkeeping situation had settled down, we went on a good run, including Reece scoring that memorable goal at Goodison. When he went on, he broke forward, went past a couple and put it in the bottom corner.
I mean, it was that derby always stands out. It was the Gerard one, wasn't it? That absolutely brilliant shot. It went nestled in the top corner, and he ran down the Bullens Road pulling his tongue. I think Everton, we were in near the bottom 3 at that point. It was only early on, but Everton was singing going down right as that goal went in. I think we went 1-0 down. Yeah. And I don't know if that was the equaliser or the one that. Yeah. And so he's the whole pulling tongues thing. But a game just before that was, and it's quite sad that it was because it was such a big occasion, was the Champions League debut in its new format.
Yeah, against
the Boavista, the night of 9/11, and it was. Yeah. It was a very surreal, strange, subdued atmosphere, wasn't it? It was, it
should never have been played.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, flights were going on all over Europe at that point. But yeah, it was a very, very peculiar atmosphere. It was just sort of very sombre, wasn't it?
Yeah, should never have been played. But that was back in the good old days where you had to finish in the top 2 of a group to get through.
And those 2 group stages then as well, which is unbelievable when you think about it now.
It's weird because we're still playing. We're playing more football now than we did then, but it doesn't feel like it. Obviously, the idea of 2 groups, but we had in our group Dynamo Kiev,
Dortmund, wasn't it?
Dortmund and the aforementioned Boa Vista after beating Hacker 9-1 on aggregate to qualify, because we had to qualify back in those days. Yeah, we drew 0-0 against Dortmund as well. Yeah, the football came really, really thick and fast that season. That's like when you're in that two-group thing. It took us. We took to it quite well. We got a couple of draws early on, and then we did plenty enough. We didn't manage to beat Boa Vista though, which is a bit bonkers when you think about it. One result that I remember, John, because it was at 100% on Prem Plus. George Graham was there. We're still smiling. We're still live. George, keep smiling. It was at Newcastle. It was a Sunday, and we went to Newcastle. Reese scored an early goal, and it was a very Houllier team performance. Soak up, ping on the break. We scored an 86-minute goal to finish it. Murphy.
Donny Murphy, was it?
Yeah, remember it very well. And I just remember that being the quintessential Houllier performance.
Yeah, I was at that game. It was brilliant coming down. I mean, Newcastle, you're up in the gods. It's you need oxygen cylinder to get up there if you're struggling with a bit of asthma or whatever you're suffering from. It's a tough gig getting up there. But yeah, the way down them steps was amazing that day. Singing the John and Reese song coming down. Yeah, it was a good away day, that one. Yeah. Yeah,
there's a very apt sound effect for Newcastle away.
That's the Uncle Albert one, isn't it?
Yeah,
sounds like yeah. But yeah, that was a quintessential Houllier style win, wasn't it? That 2-0. Yeah, we was strong, resolute, and as I say, picked them off at the right moments.
What one game I've got to mention? We got knocked out of the Carling Cup by fucking Grimsby Town.
Yeah.
Phil Jevons, 120th minute. I know a Grimsby fan who never let me forget that. And they beat United last season, and the first thing I did was message him on Facebook and say, right, take your business elsewhere. You've got something else to talk about for 20 years now. Another standout result. I'm not going to go through it game by game, John, apart from something that interests me, because we'll be here all month otherwise. But the 3-1 battering of Man United, who were the champions at the time, that proved to me that we belonged where we were. Because it's the first time I'd ever seen us beat Man United at Anfield. I was there that day. And we battered them. 3-1 flattered them. It could have been a lot more. Obviously, everyone remembers the Reese goal. The absolutely... I can still hear Andy Gray saying, goodness gracious me now. It was absolutely clobbered. I still think I've never seen a shot hit so hard. And like Beckham scored that free kick, and then straight, something that never used to happen to Man United. Barthez went on the move, and that's a trance reference to anyone. Barthez went on the move and was out of position, and Owen just nodded it in, didn't he?
Yeah, they've made it 2-1, hadn't they? And you think, oh, here we go. But
an undeserved 2-1 as well.
Yeah, that was just after that, wasn't it? But I say, at that point, I think United were just... obviously, I think they won the third title on the run, hadn't they? They started with the treble, and then it felt like they were sort of in that flux where it was all about the Champions League for them, but they couldn't quite, get over the line again in it. And I don't know if the league become a little bit too easy, if you like, for them at that point, and he sort of took their eye off the ball. Players had maybe lost the hunger there and stuff, whereas we were on an upward curve. I think that particular team of theirs was sort of just wavering a little bit. I think they lost Stam, didn't they, and signed Laurent Blanc to replace him, which I think Ferguson always said was like his biggest mistake, getting rid of Stam. But we, from our perspective, we were definitely at the beating of them at that point. So 5 times on the spin, I think it was, wasn't it? We beat them over a period. So yeah, we were definitely a bogey team for them, which was normally they're our bogey team, even when we were winning trophies in the 80s. I don't think we beat them at Anfield for a decade or whatever it was. So the shoe was on the other foot for a bit there.
Yep, Stam is an ugly man. Sorry. Yeah. that was a signature result of that season. I thought. You look at games that potentially cost you titles, and obviously we missed out by 6 or 7 points, didn't we, in the end? And you look at draws away to Blackburn, and a 0-0 draw at home to Fulham, and then a terrible Christmas. It was a terrible Christmas for us.
Yeah, we had a really bad spell, didn't we?
Yeah.
I think that was probably me. They're going about draws it, but that spell over Christmas, I think we lost to Arsenal, didn't we? I think it was pretty much a year to the day. We battered them 4-0. I think it was around the same time of the year.
Yeah, 10-man Arsenal as well.
Yeah, so I think that's just sort of... I never felt like we were in control of possibly winning the title. I'd always felt like we were playing catch-up after that. It felt like that. Arsenal just looked better than us, didn't he, throughout the season. I think that game, that just before Christmas, was a killer for us. So I think, did we take the lead that game as well?
No.
Okay.
Arsenal took the lead with an Henry penalty on half time. They were down to Van Bronckhorst got 2 yellow cards. They played most of the game with 10 men.
Did we equalise, or did they go 2 up?
They went 2-0 up.
Right, okay. So they had 10 men, we got 1 back, and but it was I think that after that, just that, because I remember the fans started getting on Danny Murphy's back, and obviously Houllier. We've not touched on that yet. I've absolutely, that's a massive. That was the Leeds game in the October, but I think everyone. It's one of them moments in time where everyone remembers. I mean, most people are in the grounds, obviously match-going fans, but just it was like murmurings around the stadium, wasn't he? About him and stuff, and then by the end of the game it was like it's common knowledge there wasn't old mobile internet at the drop of a button back then, so it's just like murmurings in the crowd, and it spread, didn't it? And then after the game you realise what's happened to him, and he just worried about his obviously his health and whether he's going to pull through, and that was a really concerning time.
So that is the Leeds game. That's the 13th of October. So I remember this very well because I wasn't actually at the game on that occasion. I remember. So I think Murphy put a ball in and it went straight out for a goal kick, and it cut to Houllier on the bench, and he looked awful. Now you look back at it, and he said to himself, or he might have been said to one of his staff, awful, and that was it. It was hard because he was taken ill at half time, wasn't he?
Yeah,
and he didn't come back out, and there were mutterings. And I remember an instance in that game as well, that fucking Danny Mills tried to play on when we were waiting for him to kick the ball out. I remember that so well. Instead of putting the ball out, he just went down the line and tried to put the ball across, and he was getting dog's abuse. I remember that incredibly
horrible, wasn't it, Danny Mills? Still horrible now. Every time I hear him speak, I'll just turn it off. Just hate his face and his voice.
If anyone is going to say Brexit means Brexit, it's Danny Mills. I was going to kind of conglomerate Houlier's illness. Thanks for bringing that to me. It's important to mention it because with that United game, that's with Phil Thompson. And at the time, John, when Houllier was out indefinitely, did you kind of think that Phil Thompson was the right man for the job, or did you think we might try and get someone in?
Yeah, I mean, I think at that point, Houllier and Thompson had that sort of bond between them, didn't they? And I mean, you could talk, all day about bringing it external, but everything had been built up over the past 2-3 seasons prior to that. I just think continuity was probably the best way forward with it. So I didn't have a problem with them because you don't know how long he was going to be sort of sidelined for at that point. Houllier, it was just sort of a not knowing situation at the moment. I mean, the way he is about football anyway, I think even a few weeks after what had happened to him, he's involved in decision making, from his hospital bed and stuff. He just had that obsession, didn't he? So he was in dialogue. Obviously, he just wasn't able to attend the games for obvious reasons, but he was in dialogue. So it was the right thing to do, just to let Thompson man the fort, so to speak. It would have undermined Houllier, even it would have undermined him had we brought someone else in. Just say they're changing tactics or wanting us to play a different way, or he's leaving players out who Houllier was playing. So yeah, I think Thompson just sort of same as last week type of attitude was absolutely the right way to be at the time. What Thompson adds tactically to anything, I don't know. It was more probably motivated and a pushing and a puller or whatever, trying to drive standards or whatever. But it was. I didn't have any particular issue with Phil Thompson, just carrying on.
And at that point,
it sorted itself out.
Sorry, John. And at that point as well, Fowler had been moved on.
Yeah.
He went to
his last game was ironically scored a hat-trick at Leicester, didn't he, as well?
Yeah. Yes, he did, yeah. And then off he went to Leeds. What did you think about that at the time? I remember being... I was at Carmel College at the time. I remember there being a lot of devastated people.
Yeah.
I'm not going to say that I was never bothered. I was always a Michael Owen guy compared to... Obviously, Fowler was there before Owen, but because I was a bit of a late starter, Owen was in the team when I properly got into football. So I was always a Michael Owen guy. I was sad that he left, and I was... It might surprise you, John, but it actually worried me that we would left ourselves a striker short. I know it's not
really?
not like me to worry about squad depth, but that's what I was worried about. But when you look back at it, historically, because he got that kind of final half a season, season and a half, sorry, under Benitez later on, we did the right thing. We got 11 million for him, which was a lot of money at the time. A lot of money. It
was, and considering the injuries he'd had at that point, I don't think he was quite the same player. Houllier had his preferred two, and Heskey and Owen. I mean, you can argue all day whether you prefer Fowler. Owen was always going to play. He was the man, wasn't he?
He was Houlier's boy, yeah.
Heskey was the perfect foil for him in so many ways. And so, Fowler... being the age he was, like 26, was he, or something like that at the time. He was never going. I just think he got to the point there. I think he thought he was being forced out at that point, and obviously things had gone on behind the scenes for a couple of years. Off the pitch, on the pitch, etc. We touched on in the first pod about Fowler's behaviour, and Houllier sees Michael Owen being like super professional that he was, and Fowler's like the sort of the little cheeky scally, from Toxteth, and he's. I mean, the fans loved Fowler, obviously, for how he's one of them, wasn't he? He sort of brought to the pitch what they wanted to be. But at that point, football was changing. It was like, it was more serious. Pretty much overnight, wasn't it? As soon as Wenger came in, it just felt like things really started to ramp up in terms of how players looked after themselves, sports science and that. And Houllier took that on as well. I always remember the Carragher story when Carragher said to him about he went out for a couple of pints with his dad, and Houllier was incredulous, saying, "Your dad?" He was genuinely shocked that he went out in the aisle with his dad. He probably thought his dad should be trying to keep him on the straight and narrow, away from drink. Houllier always made some reference about don't be drinking now. Own a club when you retire or something like that. You can buy a club when you retire or whatever. I think the whole thing with Fowler, he was sort of caught between the two eras. I think sort of he come into that sort of Spice Boy era, if you want to call it that. He's a star player, and obviously the crossover and the bad injuries he had. He was never the same then, and Houlier's probably just thought, he is expendable, as I say, I can manage without him, and we can look elsewhere for a more suitable player to give us what he thought we needed at that point. Hence, Anelka coming in December, was it? Anelka came in.
I'm just going to check that actually when I can get to the right part of the bloody thing.
I think it was in the December, wasn't it?
Yes, just before Christmas.
So, I mean, when Anelka signed, I know it was only on loan, but you're like, wow. I mean, he had the reputation, like Le Sulk and all that. I don't know how sort of deserved or undeserved. But everyone who played with Anelka said he was a quiet lad, but he was pleasant enough and that. So maybe it was just an undeserved like reputation that he had. He was obviously a brilliant footballer.
And a goal scorer as well. Obviously, we'd just sold one of our Premier League all-time top scorers.
I mean, he didn't score many for us, Anelka, but when there was a game against Newcastle around the March time. I don't know if you remember, the floodlights went out before the game.
Oh, yeah.
And I think the kick-off got delayed, but he was absolutely... I think he took the electric from the stadium out the floodlights that night and then put it into himself because he was fucking ridiculous. It was just like a masterclass of a centre-forward performance. It was just... Newcastle couldn't get near him. I don't even think he scored that game. It was a phenomenal performance. What was that one?
Phenomenal.
Okay. Yeah, so he all the smart money was on us signing him, wasn't it? You thought that was going to be the case at the end of the season.
Yeah.
And then you start hearing little murmurings, it's not going to happen and all that, and you're like, oh, but... Yeah, I mean, if ever there was a player who should have been a Liverpool player long term, it was definitely Nicolas Anelka.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, we botched that, and like we had that bad run around Christmas when we signed him as well. Obviously, we sold Fowler in the November, so that was when Houllier was actually ill. You know.
Anelka could really offer us something.
Hey, John, you sound like you're trying to sell me drugs. I better handle this. Hey, John, have you got any of them guillotines? They get you off your head, they do. Have you got any of them firemen, John? Because they get you out of your tree.
God.
John, most important, have you got any adultery in 3rd century Jerusalem? Because that properly gets you stoned, that does. Sorry. Right, okay.
It's a staple of the pod, isn't it? Let's face it.
Yeah, I've got a lot more where they come from, more of the pity.
I'm sure you'll have, Dan. I'm sure you'll have, mate.
Yeah. So we had that bad run around Christmas. We only won 1 in 10. And if we'd have gone...
Yeah, 1 in 10. Wow.
I'm just counting now. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5,
Was
6,
that
7,
league
8,
and it must have been league and cup? That surely it wouldn't have just been the league, would it?
Just in the league.
Oh wow!
Yeah, we got knocked out of the FA Cup early on by Arsenal as well. They got the revenge for...
I was at that game, yeah. That was an away game, and there was the Carragher throwing game, wasn't it?
Yes, indeed it was, yeah. And there was the usual... We did well in Europe. We were very competent in Europe.
Although Barcelona did teach us a lesson, I remember, at Anfield.
Yes, they did. They really did.
3-1. I remember, I think Rockenbach scored, and I think they must have had about 50 passes beforehand, I think, with something we got near them.
Yeah.
Rockenbach scored a screamer at the cop end, yeah.
Didn't Fowler say, can we have the ball back, please, to Frank de Boer?
That's right, yeah.
Quite famously, yeah.
Yeah, so they'd obviously... after the UEFA Cup game the year before, that was a totally different game, that one.
Yeah, well, we will get on to the Roma game later on, for obvious reasons, but I do note that there was a 0-0 draw at the new camp. I bet Johan Cruyff was having cold sweats about that. We didn't beat.
Was it Cruyff who said shit on a stick football, or was that someone else who said that saying about?
I think he said it was horrible football.
Who said shit on a stick football?
Sounds like something that he might have said. I don't recall that one myself.
I've heard that say. I can't remember who said it, but I had it in my head, but it was Cruyff, but I might be wrong.
But on the back of this 1 win in 9, which included 4 draws in 5, one being one of my favourite Premier League goals, which was Risa at Arsenal, when Gerard, with the outside of his foot, just picked out Risa. Risa had the whole stadium to himself, scored a lovely goal. We'd not played well in that game. Ljungberg had, as he used to always do against us, had scored, and that goal came out of nowhere. It's one of my favourite Liverpool goals. That absolutely incredible pass.
Well, I actually thought the one against United was just as good as well for Murphy.
Well, that's the signature result that I was just about to go on to, actually, because that was how we broke that run of 1 in 9. We went to 1-0 at Old Trafford with an 85th minute Danny Murphy goal. That was my first away game.
Well, okay, right. I mean, that Murphy was getting a bit of stick from the fans at that point as well.
He'd become to look quite limited, hadn't he?
Yeah, I liked Murphy. He was a good player for us. He was tactically astute. He was one of them players like you'd always appreciate in a squad. For what he brings you, like flexible, play different positions. He wasn't a world beater, but he was determined. He had good ability as well. He could take good free kick, good penalty, and score some good long range goals from time to time as well. But I thought in terms of Houllier loved him, didn't he? He was just because he'd follow instructions out to the letter of the law. How Houllier wanted him to play and stuff. So, but I say players like that, they're underappreciated, I think, and it's easy to get on the backs of Danny Murphy, isn't it? It's always sort of the cheaper sort of localish players, if you like, who get a lot of criticism when things aren't going well.
The homegrown players always seem to be the ones who cop for that as well, don't they? So we went on a good run there. Obviously, we was at the FA Cup. In February, we went and won 4-0 at Leeds. And
what a game that was! Rio own goal, wasn't it? Ferdinand, yeah.
And then 6-0 at Ipswich.
That game, yeah. Boring Scousers.
Yes, boring Scousers. Yeah, that reminds me, actually, I remember Old Trafford singing "Sit Down, Big Nosio." Phil Thompson just doing waving the doing the conductor gesture. Keep it coming. And Xavier scored on his debut. He was a bit of a shock signing, obviously a little less acrimonious than the Nicky Barmby transfer the year before.
I was fucking acrimonious about it when he signed, I know that much. I wasn't happy with it, to be fair, but
I mean, we
sold Stephen Wright, didn't we? And then signed Xavier, and he wasn't a fan of him at all.
He was very, very limited. You could see why Everton weren't too fussed about him going. We actually drew the derby as well the next game at Anfield. We let that Thomas Radzinski Jabroni score, and Elka did score the equaliser. And then we went on a massive winning run, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 7 on the spin, and I remember Vladimir Smait's 90th minute winner at Anfield against Chelsea. Yeah, that volley. It was just fizzed across and he just swung Garrett, calm as you like, bottom corner. And I remember that, John, because I was at home, and guess what a game it was? Prem Plus.
Oh, right, okay.
I remember these Prem Plus games very well. All that hard-earned cash me dad had to part with.
That was a Sunday afternoon game, wasn't it?
Yes, it was, yeah. So we went on this impressive run, lost 1-0 at Tottenham, which ironically, it knocked us out of the title race. And it basically handed the title to Arsenal, which obviously Spurs were doing what they had to do. It was a big game. We never looked like we were going to win the title, did we? It felt like we was in it, especially when we went on that big run. But Arsenal didn't have the common decency or courtesy to have a bad run. They just kept on going.
It was sort of like a watered down version of what we went through at City all them years later in 18-19, wasn't it? It was like.
Please blink.
And we did blink. I think we lost it at Spurs. So we were already up against it anyway. I think we lost at Spurs. Of all teams, maybe it was like April time, was it? I think we lost 1-0. And I think, it felt like we were right up against it. It felt like we were relying on Arsenal slipping up a couple of times. But the form was good. We put a really good win and run together. Houllier was back. The Roma game. I mean,
to come to that now.
Yeah. It's in hindsight, it was a great idea at the time. I think Clive Tilsley's commentary added to it. Gerard Houlier's mere presence has lit the touch paper for Liverpool. Just give that extra 10-20% to the crowd. It was already fever pitch anyway, that game, but when Houllier strolled out and that, it was he looked awful, let's face it, two ways about it. You know, he just looked a shadow of the man he was, sadly. I mean, in hindsight, could you have just maybe said, all right, Gerard, you've come back for one game, you know, just recuperate, keep recuperating, you know, sit out the rest of the season. You know, and then he's starting coming out with like the 10 games from greatness quote, which ended up being neither, because we didn't win the league or the Champions League in the end. You know, we went out to Leverkusen, didn't we, in the end?
Well, that's what I was going to come on to. Obviously, the Roma game was a huge occasion. Can you remember what channel that was on, John? Champions League at that time?
ITV, wasn't it?
It was ITV Digital.
Oh, right, okay. Yeah, so I only said that because of Clive Tilsley. I just thought it was ITV still, yeah.
Look at me, monkey. Look at me. That's not on.
So, yeah, because didn't it go bust after that or something? Or
It did, yeah.
Yeah.
There was a bit of a curse because Satanta Sports also.
I was just thinking of Satanta Sports as well, and yeah.
So the Roma game was obviously a monumental occasion. We needed to win to get through, which we did. We deserved. On the night we were brilliant. Early Lippmann penalty obviously eased everyone's nerves, and then Heskey scored, and we never looked like that was still a very good Roma team.
Yeah.
And obviously we'd beaten them 2-1. We was a lot more convincing with that. But we only ended up winning one Champions League group game, group 2 and qualifying.
Unbelievable, yeah. So it was a tight group, wasn't it? Was it 2-0 that Roma game? Did you say 2-1?
Yes, 2-0.
Was it 2-0? Yeah. Yeah, it was a tight group, wasn't it? I think we got 7 points and qualified, which is you know, less than half the points available, and we got through. Who won the group then? Would it have been? Would it have been Barcelona?
I would presume Barcelona. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
I need to look up the league tables.
So we were in the quarterfinals anyway, weren't we? Which was like, you know, if you'd offered that at the start of the season, you know, you'd have snapped your hands off, wouldn't you? It was like first time in the competition. You were down at the top table again.
This is a difficult one now because this for me is where the downfall of Houllier began. But you've mentioned the Leverkusen game, 1-0 up from Anfield, won the first leg 1-0, and it looked like we were going to be going through. In Leverkusen, we was in reasonable control, would you say? And then off comes Didi Hamann, on comes Vladimir Smeisser. Was that? Just be honest with you, because when I look back now, yes, it was. Do you think that was the first sign that there was something not quite there? It wasn't that long after the Roma game. It's within a month. Did you think that there was something missing? Did you ever attribute that mistake to the fact that
not at the time?
Well?
No, I mean, I just thought of it like, I mean, you can be wise after the event, can't you? But I mean, at the time, yeah, I mean, because the results had still been good, you know, up until that Leverkusen game. We won the first leg 1-0, and then you know, that was just one. You know, in hindsight, you could say, yeah, that was sort of what's going on there. But at the time, I didn't think that. You know, I'll be honest, I genuinely didn't. You know, managers can make like bad substitutions. You know, even when they're sort of well and healthy and that. You know, it just happens, doesn't it? You know, a manager can do that. But that ultimately did cost us that game anyway. I think that's pretty certain to say.
Yeah, managers make mistakes all the time, but when you look back, this is where you can circle. Is this where it started? And you could make an argument that it does. We finished the season pretty well. I remember driving over someone's bike again and again and again after a 4-3 win against Blackburn because they deliberately scratched his car and he caught them. So he just like pushed him off the bike, got his car and drove over and over and over.
Well, like a push bike, you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, wow. Yeah. What was that, someone by the ground, some scally kid or something, was it?
Yeah.
Wow.
Just drove over. In fact, do me a favour, Dave, edit that out, because I don't want it to get in any trouble. I know it was 20 years ago.
The police are looking for the man who did that 25 years later.
Yeah, but over and
Yeah, I
over.
think that 4-3 game Blackburn, that was the night Arsenal won the league at Old Trafford, wasn't it? I think we still had an outside chance of the title, did we, going into that game? Did we?
I don't see how we can. We finished 7 points behind Arsenal.
Oh, right, okay. So
there was
yeah,
only
so
six to
it was
play
just
for.
between Arsenal and United then, so obviously Arsenal. But was it to finish second? Which
I think it was,
we did.
because we finished 3 points ahead of the Manx.
Yeah, so obviously they lost, and Arsenal won the league there and stuff. And but that game, it was the Damien Duff game, wasn't it? Ultimately, even though they lost, he was phenomenal on the night. I remember. I think he scored a great goal, if I remember rightly, in that game. It was the game. I know you knew he was a good player anyway, and we'd been linked to him. And you thought that was the game. Thought, yeah, we've got to sign him. If there's anything in those rumours, get him signed.
Yeah, and it was something that was flirted with for a long time and never happened, and then Chelsea just went wham. Can you remember much about the last day of the season? Because I've got one abiding memory.
Yeah, I remember it was a typical lovely sunny day. It was a bit of a celebration atmosphere, saying goodbye to Gary Mack and Redknapp. Would it have been Redknapp?
Well, they both left in the April.
They left, had they?
According to my information.
I'm sure Gary Mack was involved in that last game, or he was on the bench. I remember the fans singing his name, and I'm sure of it. But anyway, it was like a celebration atmosphere. You thought, yeah, okay, we finished second, that's progress again. No trophies this time, but you're thinking, okay, it's about now the final step. So you obviously you're just trusting that we get the right players in over the summer. But yeah, the game itself, I remember it was Titus Bramble, I think. I just remember him cocking up. Yeah, I remember him. And do you want me to say, well, Titus Bramble, he could look like absolutely amazing for like 89 minutes, and he'd just do something inexplicable, like which would cost teams points, like Newcastle in later years, but I don't think he was like a bad footballer as such, but it was just it was a concentration thing with him, I think. But I don't think he was like he gets like the whole Titus Bramble thing. But I thought a little bit of it was undeserved. Whether it's just me, I don't know.
I remember him slamming home a 30-yard goal against us for Wigan.
Oh yes, yeah, I remember that.
When Benitez went 4-5-1 at home to Wigan.
Yeah, I remember that.
For whatever reason.
Yes. Yeah, so that game, you're thinking, all right, yeah, it's a really good season. 80 points, which was more than the season before, probably by, 9 points more or whatever it was. So you're thinking, okay, Arsenal get 87 points, and, it's a convincing title win for them in the end. They romped on, really, didn't they? And they were by far the best team. But you thought, okay, we finished above United for the first time in a long time. So you can only see that the right additions would make us take that next step.
Best defence in the league as well, John. Only conceded 30 goals all season. Right, so that's that season wraps up. If we move on to the 2002-2003 season, and in our preamble, John, I described this as the worst season that I can remember. Probably matched by last season, to be fair. But we finished 5th, and it was pretty obvious by the end of that season that we had made awful mistakes in the summer with our transfer business. There was a lot of, what have we done that for, when we decided to not sign Nicholas Anelka. But we was assured that El Hadji Diouf was the solution to all our problems, and he did look very, very good in his in the opening game in the 2002 World Cup. I remember it very well. He ran France ragged as Senegal shocked France 1-0, the defending champions. They went out in the group stages, didn't they, France?
Yeah.
But we had a lot of transfer business that summer. When you look back, it's very, very alarming that we got it so wrong. Patrice Luzi, meh. Like that is what that is. Alou Diarra from Bayern, he was a free transfer as well. Didn't announce anything much. We spent 3.7 million on the new Zidane, Bruno Cheru, who lit the place up against Lazio in a friendly at Anfield, and we thought, we're in here. We paid 10 million for Diouf, who turned out to be an absolute shit kicker. And we paid, now it's chump change, but when you look at 4.7 million back in 2002, that's obnoxiously expensive for Salif Diao. We'd sold Nicky Barmby and Stephen Wright. Jari Lipman went back to Ajax on a free, and if you really care, Jurgen Nielsen went to Nordjylland. I think that might be right. I'm sure Pete will correct me if I'm wrong. How did you feel about the transfer business, John? Because I was not convinced, whether that be Gerard Houllier, who could do nothing wrong in my eyes at the time, was telling me or otherwise. I was not of the opinion that Nicolas Anelka was going to be a worse signing. You know, like what we were thinking, I don't know, but I'll let you have your say. Why I go and turn the lights on. So you'll be talking to yourself very briefly, but if I leave the lights off for any longer, I'm going to get a banging headache.
Yeah, well, when we signed him, I thought, yeah, okay, you know, signing players, World Cup, it's sort of, you don't know what you're going to get. It's like Forrest Gump thing, like a box of chocolates, isn't it? It's like, for every Jurgen Klinsmann, who's a top player at the World Cup, then you're signing players like that. Diouf, Diao and well, not Cheru, but yeah, it's. I was open-minded about it, really. You know, just considering, you know, we were on an upward curve, so I thought you've got to be open-minded about these players. You thought they'd fill in gaps. You know, Diouf had like a bit of trickery, a bit of guile about him from what you'd seen in the World Cup. Diao scored one of the goals of the tournament, I remember, like a sweeping team move against someone. I can't remember who it was against now, but I think he got voted one of the goals of the tournament, and I think he started the move and finished it off. He scored, it was like 6 yards tapping, but I'm pretty certain he started the move off, and it was like a back to front move. So yeah, I was okay with it. You know, I was gutted that we didn't sign an Elka and Duff, but you know, you've got to be open minded considering what Houllier had done at that point.
Yeah, absolutely. But for me, it was like, no, I was not happy about not signing Nico. I thought he was. I thought he was the absolute.
Well, it
man.
was a shoe-in signing as well.
Yeah.
That's the bad thing. It was an absolute shoe-in there to be done, and Elka wanted the move as well. And for it not to happen, it's like, yeah, wow. But when we signed Diouf after what you'd seen of him in the World Cup, yeah, I was disappointed that we didn't sign Elka. But okay, we've got to give this lad a chance. He was 21 at the time. Diao was like 25, something like that. Cheru 24. So it's players with good ages in the career. You think, okay, you know, and sometimes you like signing players that you don't know much about. I mean, I want that now. I can't sort of, you know, I want us to sign players we don't know much about, rather than Bradley Barcola, for instance. Pay 100 million. It's a totally different stratosphere now, but I'd rather we sign the players that PSG are signing to replace Barcola than actually signing Barcola. So yeah, so back that, you know, I can't be sort of two-faced about it now, I suppose.
You can. So just the start of that season, we actually, the aforementioned El Hadji Diouf actually scored twice on his home debut, didn't he?
And Diao started well, I thought. Yeah, he scored a goal against Leeds, didn't he? To beat Leeds away, which, you know, Leeds were sort of on the downward curve at that point, but beating Leeds away, and Diao scored. And I think we won 9 of the first 12 games, didn't we? So we got off to an unbelievable start. Yeah, even though we give a couple of leads away, didn't we? I think we went 2-0 up in like 3 games on the run, and it wasn't like us to do that. Especially 3 games on the run. I think Birmingham come from 2-0 down. Yeah, Birmingham and Newcastle scored twice in the last 10 minutes. Yeah, and there was a game at Bolton as well, wasn't there? I think, even though we won that, I think Barros might have scored the winner or something, did he? No, Heskey scored the winner, but Barros scored his first 2 goals for the club. That's right, yeah. I was at an Oasis gig that day in the Lancashire Cricket Ground, so I remember trying to keep an eye on the score. My sympathies for you, with you for that, mate. Trying to keep my eye on the score, yeah? No, Oasis. We conceded goals to the footballing titans that are Ricardo Gardner and Ivan Campo.
Heskey scored straight away after Campo equalised as well. But it looked like we was going to have lost leads in like 4 consecutive games. We went on a massive winning run after that as well. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and one of those games. I was at the final game at Main Road, or Liverpool's final game at Main Road. It wasn't our final game at Main Road because we drew them in the FA Cup. But as far as I was aware, it was going to be our last game at Main Road. And I remember Michael Owens scoring a hat-trick. Yeah, Kevin Keegan was the Man City manager. And actually,
speaking of which, we need to...
I was going to step back, We've not had a chance to talk about Kevin Keegan passing. What the thing in football is, you always hear stories about who are dickheads and who aren't. And I've never heard or read anyone say a single bad thing about Kevin Keegan. I've not heard nothing, but he's a lovely man. And it was very sad that we knew he was ill. We knew he was very seriously ill, and he's much maligned as a manager, or was much maligned as a manager. Really, when you look back, he was never a good fit for the England job. You know, he was not a good fit for the England job. He was a bad appointment. He played lovely attacking football at Newcastle. Never won anything with it, but you know, like Newcastle fans, they love the goals. They love to be entertained for better or worse. That's what they want. So he was a hero to them. He went back as well, didn't he, under Mike Ashley as well, briefly as well. Like the player, I don't remember much of. I've seen the videos. I've seen the transfer fee to Hamburg. But what a player. Was not a Liverpool manager at any point, but you know, like, we like our attacking football as well. I would have been interested to see if history would have been slightly different, and we did have Kevin Keegan as manager. I think I'd like to have seen that at some point off the top of my head. I know when I'm thinking about it now, it would have been possibly quite interesting. But then again, you know how much I like McLean sheets, John. Have you got anything that you want to say about Kevin?
Yeah, I mean, you know, I say before my time as a player, obviously, but you know, just as a personality, he was always prevalent. Whatever in the 80s, the 90s, he was just one of them. As you touched on, and no one had a bad word to say against him. And you know, the fact he quit the England job after losing against Germany, you know, he didn't wait for his payoff or anything like that to be sacked. He actually quit like 20 minutes out, fronted it up. I mean, that's a measure of the man, really, isn't it?
Exactly.
You know, it's like not many managers would ever do anything like that. You know, so it showed a lot of class. And the fact that even like the whole thing when he sold Andy Cole, Newcastle, and you know the fans were in uproar, as you would be. You know, Cole was like the golden boy for Newcastle and stuff.
He stood on the steps of St James's Park to talk
That's what I mean. Mid-January or whatever it was, he's coming out and speaking to the fans. I'm like, that never happened now, would it? It just in a million years it never happened like nowadays. But he's there, he's fronting up, he's having a conversation with them, and yeah, he just brought that sort of personality and a realness to the game, didn't he? In terms of he was in it for the love of the game, wasn't he? You know, and you know, he's an emotional man, but you love that. I think a lot of people relate to that. I mean, you laugh at all that, I'd love it if we beat them, but it was box office, wasn't it? He was box office.
Yeah, there was never a dull moment with Kevin Keegan teams for one way or another. He just a lot of people just remember his England spell, and it's not for because look at the England team. You know, it was the end of a cycle for them.
Yeah.
After a good run, you know, around Euro '96, France '98, it was just the end of that England team cycle. And yeah, I remember that quite distinctly. Whatever was, it wasn't Sky Sports News at the time, I don't think, but stood outside to people going, "Hey, where have you sold War Andy for, like?" And I remember that very well. And it's a measure of the man, as you say. He fronted up. He said, you know, "Let's talk about it." And obviously, Newcastle fans are going to listen to what Kevin Keegan says because he was a hero to them. Top man, very sadly missed. So. If we go back to the season, John, obviously I've just...
we've won 9 out of our first 12, haven't we, anyway, and you're thinking... I think the game which... was it Charlton beat us, was it 2-0? Was that the first loss?
They did beat us, but the first run of that loss is in your nemesis area, Middlesbrough.
Oh right, okay.
Gareth
really?
Southgate, yeah, that was the first of the bad run because we were top.
Ah, right, yeah, it was. I think. Yeah, yes, you're right. Yeah. Yeah, so that would have been like October, November. Then would it have been?
Yeah, it was
typically
Black November again.
Yeah, another Black November. Yeah, so
but the thing is, though, it started on Black November and it finished up in
January.
In mid-January was when we won our next game.
Southampton.
We didn't win for a third of the season.
That's incredible. I think it was like 11 games, wasn't it? We lost 5 and drawn 5 and lost 6, or the other way round. I think drawn 6 and lost 5.
We absolutely sank like a stone. We managed to get we managed to let footballing luminaries such as Facundo Sava score goals.
The man with the mask.
Yeah, Jason Ewell and Paul Konchesky as well in that Charlton game. Bloody Gavin McCann, bloody Michael Proctor at Sunderland.
Sunderland, I remember that game, 2-1, yeah.
With Andy Cole scoring equaliser. We still managed to get our customary result against Arsenal at Highbury as well. Danny Murphy penalty, I remember that being on a Sunday, just after Christmas. Yeah, 29th of December, I remember that, yeah. 1-0 loss to Newcastle. Can you remember who scored the Newcastle goal?
No.
Laurent Robert.
It doesn't surprise me.
Yeah, he had a good left foot on him. In the middle of that though, John, I'm gonna call out a result. I've already briefly mentioned it. It was the day where Dudek lost his cat. He was having a bit of a wibbly wobbly run, and then it came to roost in that Man United game when Sally Gunnell scored twice for Man United.
Yeah, it was a typically bad day at the office at that point. I think
really
United,
terrible.
Yeah, it was. I mean, there was nothing in that game, I don't think, until that point. What was there?
It was a very poor game of football.
Yeah, it's a bit of like typically attritional game, wasn't it? Should we probably best way to describe it? And there was always going to be a moment like that decided it. But it was like literally, it was a few minutes later. It wasn't like 20 minutes later. I felt it was like 3 or 4 minutes later. The second went in. Again, it possibly should have done better near post, maybe.
Yeah, should have saved them both. Yes, yeah. Let one go through his legs and then one squirmed in. Yes. Yeah,
and so that was just in the obviously that bad run was really accelerating at that point, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And yeah, United obviously went on to win the title that season as well. You know, we're sort of ahead of them, and then we're behind them within a year again. It's just like how's that happened?
And the recruitment is the thing that you point the finger at. Can you remember who we broke the duck against to win this run?
Southampton.
It was,
Heskey, wasn't it? Edda.
Yep.
Yeah.
And then,
do you want me to say my main overriding thing about that bad run was that awful black and grey away kit? That if ever a kit summed up a team, it was that kit. Oh God, the Reebok kit. It was fucking horrendous.
It was, yeah.
And we went out to Champions League. Basel did the number on us.
The next sentence out of my mouth. That
was that game as well. Yeah.
Yeah,
Basel
we managed to. I mean, we came from 3-0 down to get a draw at St Jakob Park, but it was too little, too late. We come unstuck in the games against Valencia, and you know, like Valencia at the time were one of the top Spanish teams. You know, there's no shame going there and losing.
Benitez was like. He was the up-and-coming coach then, wasn't he? Houllier was sort of on the way down a bit for, you know, various reasons, if you like. But Benitez just absolutely they murdered us over there, 2-0. It could have been 7, I remember.
Yeah.
Command
sent off.
Yeah, and the game at Anfield, he just shut us down. We didn't get proper nullified us, and it was as comfortable as a 1-0 win. There was a Benitez 1-0 win, you know, proper stranglehold on the game and just not giving anything away. It was when Benitez was in his pomp. That's what he was so good at. But him and Mourinho were sort of coming up the rails side by side at that point, weren't they?
I think you are correct. So if I'm just looking, like we'd progressed in the League Cup. I remember I had to leave. The Ipswich game, I was living in Preston at the time because I was at uni. I had to leave the Ipswich game like after extra time, before the penalty shootout, otherwise I wouldn't have gotten home. That was on the 4th of December. That was won 5-4 on penalties. We won 4-3 at Villa. That was just before Christmas, because then it was still a two-legged semi-final. We lost 2-1 at Sheffield United. Was Mouth on Legs manager there at the time. He was, wasn't he?
Yeah, he was.
Yeah. Well, at the time, can you remember who scored the 2 Sheffield United goals?
Michael Tongue.
It was Michael Tongue, yeah. And
yeah, because we were linked to him. He was like an up and coming. I mean, he was just sort of a bog standard championship player for the majority of his career, but he was a player at that point. He was sort of, a lot of Premier League teams were linked to him, because Sheffield United had a good side then. They got to the 2 semi-finals of the domestic cups, and they got beaten the playoff final in the end, but they might have gone up automatically only for the cup runs, but they were a decent side, weren't they?
Yeah, they were, and they was always up for the cup as well. I will give Warnock a lot of shit because I do not like him, but he always had his teams up for the cup. We'll mention the FA Cup exit in a bit as well. In fact, let's go to that now.
Just going back to Neil Warnock, one of the things that reminds me that the second leg, the 2-0 game, because even that went to extra time, didn't it? That was a slog and a half, that.
Yes, it
getting
was.
over the line and that. But when we scored the second goal, the fans are singing, Warnock, what's the score? And like, he gives the V sign to the Coppers 2, and then he did a 0 after it. I'm thinking he'd be fucking up on a FA charge or something nowadays, wouldn't he? I thought, you know what, I thought it was like really funny at the time, considering who it was, and like obviously his team were losing. I thought, fair play to him. So, a bit of character in the game back then, compared to what it is now. I think like everything's a bit more serious nowadays. I wouldn't be surprised if he'd be pulled up for something like that nowadays.
Well, if you throw enough shit, John, some sticks. So at some point he's going to be funny. We did make hard work of that, and in years gone by we would have gone through on away goals as well, but away goals weren't on at that time for whatever reason. So I just want to mention that FA Cup loss to Crystal Palace, because do you remember when Heskey was at the whole of the pitch?
Yeah.
And just passed it straight to the goalkeeper.
Yeah, I do indeed. Yeah,
that was something that he never recovered from.
No.
And the season had kind of started to stabilise around about March, but that was an absolutely shocking result when we'd started to pick up a few wins here and a few wins there. It was a replay as well, that after an insipid 0-0 draw at Sellers Park under the floodlights. Well, it would have been under the floodlights because it was in January. So your boys Palace causing us problems. I'll never forget that, because he had the whole of the pit and he just passed it straight to the goalkeeper.
Well, I think he was becoming a bit of a scapegoat as well at that point, Heskey.
Yeah.
I always remember I think he was one of them players at that point. He was sort of crying off a little bit too much, sitting on his size, his physique and all that. There was a game of Fulham away. Or was it QPR? Was it Fulham? Or was that the year after? I remember he was it might have been 03-04 actually. We beat Fulham 2-1 away. And he took a knock and he was just like ambling up and down the touchline looking at the bench and I always remember the fans were really on his case over it. On the away end, because Fulham were playing at QPR at that point, not at Craven Cottage, I think.
Playing at Loftus Road.
Yeah, they were playing at the home games at Loftus Road, and yeah, it's just one memory always sticks around about in that time. Heskey was sort of, getting pelters, and even David started deleting the E from his name so he wouldn't put his name in the fanzine.
The asterisks.
I had a mate, Dave Wilmer, formerly 4 times and 5 times on the forum. And he actually left a couple of times and Heskey was starting to get in, like he's have a bevy before the game, and then you see Heskey he actually walked out a couple of times.
Screw you guys and go home.
Yeah, so I think he'd just go back to the pub then if he's seen Heskey, and that's how bad it was at that point. Yeah,
it was an awful season. We did walk away with the cup. We won the Carling Cup. against Man United in the final.
Bit of a dudette redemption game.
It was a dudette redemption game. It was certainly a much better performance than Istanbul. He made a string of brilliant. Him and Van Horsehead were having a personal ding dong with each other, but we were in very scratchy form around it. We were not in any kind of good form. Gerard scored that. It looked like a whopping goal at the time. It did take a big deflection. It's still a good goal, but it did take a big deflection. And then we tried to sit in and defend. It didn't work very well because of the amount of saves that Dudek had to make. But we dug in there, and obviously Owen
clinched it late on.
Took the roof off the stadium.
Well, the roof was on the stadium that game. I don't know if you were at that game. Yeah, so it was your first time I've been in a stadium with the roof on, so it was a bit of a unique sort of experience being in Cardiff with the roof on that day.
Yeah, it was. It's something we could do a podcast on itself, that result. I feel like I'm just glossing over a little bit, but giving it to them and beating them after all of the grief that they'd given us, after that horrendous Dudek mistake, the Dudek mistakes against Sally Gunnell. That was a big get it right up you, as far as I was concerned. I was absolutely made up with that. And then they got their hands on us later on in the season and beat us 4-0 when Sammy got sent off after 5 minutes.
Yeah.
So that was a horrendous afternoon. That, and I just feel like I'm glossing over the season, but.
Well, at that point we were just in a battle for top four, weren't we? Trying to get in the top four. I think even Everton were up there. Everton were having a relatively good season.
Yeah, Radzinski had a good season and it fired them.
Rooney burst on the scene, wasn't it, as well? He scored the goal against the year before against Arsenal, hadn't he? So he was becoming a thing in that. And that was that season. It was 2-3. What am I on about? Sorry, yeah. So he scored the goal in the October against Arsenal. I think Arsenal were like 30 games unbeaten or something at that point. So Everton were like, they were having a good season, all things considered. Like they were in the mix up until, typically as Everton tend to do, fall away late on the season. But we were looking over our shoulder for top four anyway. Obviously we didn't end up getting it anyway.
No, there was kind of question marks about Diouf's ability, but he disgraced himself against Celtic as well, if you remember.
Yeah,
absolutely. When we were absolutely awful. That result, I mean, drawing 1-1 at Celtic Park and in a Battle of Britain game is not a bad result, but losing 2-0
it'd be a bad result now, but that Celtic team were a powerful, strong team. They ended up getting to the final, only lost against Mourinho's Porto, so they had something about them. It was. The actual performance in the home leg was absolutely
terrible,
abysmal. Yeah,
and obviously letting John Hartson score is never gonna end well. But we never looked like we were going to go through with that. Obviously, Houllier would have wanted to try and retain the UEFA Cup as well, but we were never looking like we were going to progress from that. We did not function well over two legs, and obviously. Apologies to him. Diouf, his conduct was disgraceful that day, and that was the beginning of the end for him as a Liverpool player straight away. Not just because he wasn't good enough, but because of the way he carries himself and conducts himself.
Yeah, well that's it. I mean, you as long as you tolerate players who aren't quite at the level, as long as they show good attitude around the place, and we've had 10 a penny with players like that over the years, but some of them you have a little bit of a soft spot for, but with Diouf he was just never. Yeah, it was just, if ever there was a player who wasn't a Liverpool player, it was him. He was a lower league, like just common denominator, trashy footballer, wasn't he?
Yep, shit kicker, absolute shit kicker. One of the worst signings we've ever made. Finished the season relatively strongly in March and April. We won 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 7 of the last 11 games we won. There was that painful loss to Man United, and that was a horrendous afternoon. That absolutely horrible. Hated every minute of that game. We won a derby at Everton. Again, they were mouthing off and
I was with the Everton fans for that game. I had to sit in the upper Gladys Street, actually. Yeah,
Aye!
yeah, that was Murphy scored an absolute peach of a goal. I
Off
love
the
them
post.
goals that hit the inside
Yeah.
of the post and go. Oh, it's a phenomenal strike. Yeah, I couldn't start to sit on my hands. Basically, it was hard. I was at the other end of the ground. I went in, had a perfect view from the upper Gladys Street, like central, and yeah, it just curled it.
Remember
hit
rightly,
the inside
John,
of the post.
that was shunted to a 3 o'clock on a Saturday, that game.
It
if I remember
was,
correctly,
yeah, absolutely right. Yeah.
A very memorable Easter Monday comeback against Charlton when we scored 2 late goals. That fucking Sean Bartlett jabroni scored for them, of course he did. And Hippier and Gerard went on to win the game for us in the last 5 minutes. 6-0 win at West Brom, and you're thinking we're going to get into the top 4 probably. We've flaked our way into the Champions League despite not being too good, and then we threw it in. We lost the last gasp to Nicholas Anelka, ironically enough. He fired Man City to a completely unexpected win. We don't lose at Anfield to Man City very often, and that's not a game we should have allowed.
Farlow's playing for City at that point as well. I think he was involved with like the winning goal actually as well. Farlow. Was it really? But I remember Schmeichel making an unbelievable save in that game for one of his best. Can't remember who it was from specifically, but yeah, it was one of the typical Schmeichel-esque saves. I don't know how old he was at that point, but he still had it in him to make those ridiculous saves that he'd make. Yeah.
Incredible goalkeeper. And in the end, John, we threw it away. We went 1-0 up it was a Champions League playoff basically between us and Chelsea on the last day of the season. If that's at Anfield, you fancy our chances. Our record at Stamford Bridge, it's better recently, but it's never been too great there all the time that I can remember. Go 1-0 up and within 3 minutes get ourselves pegged back, and then Gronkiaia scored, and that was it. We effectively, to all intents and purposes, accidentally enabled the Chelsea revolution. They went to qualify for the Champions League.
Yeah.
Spent all that money. Joe Cole,
Damien Duff,
Petr Cech. Yeah, they spent that. No, I don't think did
Simon Veron that
Cech?
summer when Abramovich took over. Yeah,
but the Mancs were pissing themselves.
Yeah,
they spent all that money, and he was terrible. He was obviously a very, very good footballer.
It just wasn't suitable. He was a brilliant footballer. Yeah,
not a Premier League player.
Yeah,
I bet the Mancs were pissing themselves because they got most of the money back. We didn't deserve to get into the top 4, and it felt like at the end of that season there was quite a lot of disillusionment because it unfolded in a terrible way. This season reminds me very much of the season just gone, very, very much. And I know you got a slightly different take on that, which I invite you to.
Well, in terms of I just wanted to ask you, where were you at the end of that 02-03 season, and in terms of Houllier carrying on? Because a lot of people said that it's time to make a change, but I think I was a bit more sort of sentimental maybe back then.
Yes, me too.
I thought, you know what, we did win a trophy. It wasn't perfect season, but I just thought he'd maybe earn the right to. I was wrong to say that. In hindsight, it's a wonderful thing, but that was how I felt at the time. But I always remember having even conversations with very esteemed Dave Usher at the time, and he was wanting Houllier gone at the end of 02-03. But I thought he deserved another season to try and turn it round again.
Yep. I was like that as well. To be honest with you, I was a bit more Sunshine Brigade then than I am now, because I'm now an experienced veteran football fan. I could tell straight away that Arne Slot was done. I could tell that in October. I knew that he was done and there was no coming back from this. With Houllier, it was a bit more nuanced, even though we haven't won a league. It's still propelled us to that incredible start to the season. Sorry, to that incredible treble. And I thought he deserves another shot. Even when he went, John, eventually I wasn't kind of actively calling for his head. I was expecting us to make a change because it felt like the right time with that new generation of managers coming through. But I'll come on to that in a bit more detail in a bit. If we move on to the next season, then it felt like I remember my excitement about signing Harry Kewell was incredible. My girlfriend at the time, Laura, the one who is responsible for the Dan Vito Corleone origin story. I remember I stayed at her house one day, and the first thing I did when I woke up was I didn't say good morning, I didn't have any breakfast, I put CFAX on to see if we'd signed Harry Kewell, and we had. And I was absolutely delighted. We pinched him for 5 million. Leeds were in financial... You all right there, John?
Sorry, mate, my phone just went off. Sorry, mate, go on.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Do you need to get that?
No, you're okay. Carry on, Dan.
I can do a monologue, and probably best not serve not doing, but we signed Kewell for 5 million. Leeds were in free fall financially.
Yeah,
they were in all kinds. They went
yeah.
down at the end of that season as well. But we paid 5 million for Kewell, which was a bargain. Did we ever get the best out of him? No. Was he worth 5 million at the time? You bet he was. Paid 3.5 million for Steve Finnan. That was a very, very solid acquisition. And we paid 3 million for Lee Gems, Litalik and Pongo. One significantly better than the other. We'd started to move on quite a bit of that treble team as well. Paddy Berger went to Portsmouth. He was done. He was past his best at that time.
Still scored the winner against us, though.
Of course,
for Portsmouth.
That's the Liverpool way, John. That's the Liverpool way. Diamed went to a JCO, that's a very big fall from grace for him. Hegum went on a free transfer. Peggy Arfexed went to Coventry. In the January, this name keeps appearing. Surland went to January, and at the end of the season, we sold Heskey to Birmingham, and Xavier went to Hanover halfway through the season. We also brought in the footballing titan that is Cal Majani. If you remember, there you go. I knew that would make you laugh. And Paul Jones actually signed for us on loan in the January, which is easy to forget. He had a brilliant game on his debut. Brilliant game. So this season, it had to be better. In terms of league position, it was. In terms of the standard of football that we play, as I said before, I think that standard of football, that the way that Houllier played has a shelf life. When you're winning, it's fine. When you're not, questions start to get asked very quickly. And we had a really slow start to this season. Now, anyone can lose to Moneybags Chelsea. We had actually got a good dig against them. Unfortunately, Jimmy Hasselbank, as he always did against Liverpool, scored a goal late on. And we lost that first game. We never really got any momentum. We won 3 in a row after that slow start. We drew 0-0 at Villa, and we drew 0-0 at home to Tottenham. Games against Tottenham finishing 0-0 at Anfield are incredibly rare, but we managed it. How were you feeling early in the season, John? I know we won that game 3-0 at Everton, and I'll never forget that because that was my 18th birthday. We won 3-0 at Woodison on my 18th birthday.
I think of worse presents, Dan. But I was pretty downbeat, to be honest with you, at that point. I felt like, as you touched on last season, you just feel everything sucked out of you, the enjoyment. Everything was a bit sterile, and but I mean, one little positive was like I was only against Crewe, but I actually went to Latala. That we played Crewe in a pre-season friendly. And went with Dave, actually. I sat with Dave, and Latalik and Pongol come on at half time. And Latalik was just... he was ridiculous. Oh, my God. Got the new Platini. He was sensational. Pongol was really good as well. But Latalik just sticks out in my mind. I thought we had something really special. He was just pinging little dink passes over the top. His touch, his awareness. For someone so young, he just looked so elegant. And it's a shame that it never got too much better for him after that. Although I remember the Istanbul season, Juventus at home, he was really good. I think that was as good as it got for him. Apart from that, you're touching the Kewell signing. I wasn't all in on Kewell because I hated Leeds at that point. I absolutely despised Leeds.
Join the club, John.
Yeah, I just couldn't think of anything. And I always thought Kewell was a whiny little bastard as well, just always fucking in the referee's ear, and it was just that snarly attitude that's what made that Leeds team like so good, you could argue. They were sort of watered down version of the whole dirty Leeds that they excelled on in the 70s and the 60s and what have you. It wasn't, obviously I'm happy we signed him, but it wasn't like over the moon excited. So he's a good player in that, obviously. But I didn't think he'd propel us to anything specific either, anything significant either, to be honest with you. But yeah, I mean, going into the season, it was sort of, I feel like downbeat. You sort of, not enjoying the games and results aren't good, and it's just sort of snowballing into, the manager's position become more sort of, at risk as the season went on.
Yeah, we did. It was a slow start. No win in the first three, probably near the relegation zone again. That win at Everton obviously sealed in the 80th minute by that Kewell volley, back across, through the keeper. Brilliant goal. We beat Blackburn 3-1. Kewell scored again. Lucas Neal got sent off.
That game, yeah. It was the Carragher.
Horrendous challenge,
Lucas
wasn't
it? Neal. Yeah.
Absolutely horrendous tackle.
But Barros broke his leg as well that game, didn't he?
He did, yeah. Yes, he did, yeah. And we beat Leicester 2-1 just about. We then went on a horrendous losing streak, and I half fancied us to have a title challenge again that season, but that's because I was inexperienced and naive. We actually took the lead against Arsenal, who we played, and on the 4th of October, and we were nowhere near it. They come from behind to win 2-1 pretty straightforward.
Yeah, so Perez scored a worldie, didn't he, at the Annie Road end, yeah.
Yes, he did, yeah.
Yeah, I remember it's like curled it in the top corner. But that was the Arsenal invincible season, wasn't it? They didn't lose a league game all season. And you could see they were pretty much in command early doors. We were never anywhere near them. No. Considering like just 2 years before we'd like put up a decent challenge against them. Obviously they won it pretty easily in the end, but we've gone from not far of being neck and neck to ended up being 30 points behind them within 2 seasons. It's like, how the hell has that happened?
Yeah, crestfallen, absolutely crestfallen about how it fell apart. Berger scored the winning goal against us, as you say. Beat Leeds 3-1. That wasn't really much to shout about as much as it was the previous 2 seasons, because they were, as I said before, they were in free fall. Beat them 3-1 comfortably. 1-2-1 at Fulham.
That was the game I was on about, the Heskey game before, yeah.
He scored as well. Murphy scored an 89th minute penalty. Can you remember who got sent off for Fulham and a name to conjure with?
I don't know, I'll go Lewis Beaumont.
It was.
Oh, was it? Wow.
Yeah.
He was a little tidy player. He was
alright,
yeah.
He ended up at Everton, didn't he, at one point?
Did he? Yeah.
I think so. He was certainly on the coaching staff. I
think he was on the coach. I remember him on the coach. But I always thought like he was that type of player. Like he always looked a threat. He's probably like when Mane was at Southampton, like that type of player. But Mane elevated, unbelievable. When he was at Liverpool, but he was like that type of, that bit of nastiness about him, and he was always a threat. Yeah, Beaumont, I was like thought of him, that type of player.
I'm just frantically googling it now to see if he played for Everton. He certainly was on the coaching staff.
Definitely, I think that was in there. That Marco Silva.
It was Silva's coaching staff, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Let me just check out. He went to West Ham. He was at Arsenal, Southampton, Fulham, West Ham. No, I was wrong. He did end up at Chesterfield at one point, though. Then, can you remember the Fulham goal scorer?
I don't know. I'll just have to apply Steve Malbranck. I don't know.
I love Steve Malbranck. I always wanted to sign him. No, it was Louis Saha.
Oh, yeah, well, he was a top player, wasn't he?
He was
a really good player, yeah. Good left foot on him.
Yeah, good left peg. And it was refereed by Mr. Styles.
In
our next game, we lost to United. And I don't really remember the United goal. I remember Kewell scoring. He did chip in.
That was the Giggs game.
It was.
2-1, wasn't it?
Yeah. Kewell scored. He chipped in with quite a few goals, to be fair, in that early part of the season.
I thought that United game was pretty similar to the one the year before. There was nothing in it. They had a player scoring 2 goals. I think even the scoring might have gone the same. I think it might have been 2-0 down in both games, and we got it back to 2-1. Yeah, both games were never quite managed to get the equaliser. Yeah, so they're both pretty similar games, 12 months apart. Them two, yeah.
Yeah, we went out to the Carling Cup early, I say early, 4th round. We got knocked out 3-2 by Bolton's footballing luminaries, Mario Jardels.
Wow.
Their goal scorer was Mario Jardel. JJ
that was at Anfield, that game, wasn't it?
It was, yeah.
Yeah, I remember that, yeah.
Yuri Diorkaev. We'd advanced into the mid-rounds of the UEFA Cup. We saw off the four.
Olympia Ljubljana were one of them, weren't they?
Yeah, we bumped them off. We beat them 3-0 at
Stoya
Anfield.
Bucharest.
Yeah, we only just though. We drew 1-1 out there.
Jimmy, wasn't it? Jimmy Traore.
Yeah, he scored out there, yeah. Kuhl scored the winner at Anfield. And there was a big break. That's how it used to end in November, 27th of November, till February. Yeah. Was there any kind of standout results to you, John? Because it just feels to me like this season was just one long, not as long as the slog before, but.
I remember. Well, we beat Chelsea, didn't we? 1-0.
We did. That was the game Patrice Lucy played.
Yeah, well, Shearer with a little purple patch, didn't he? He scored a few goals. He got in the team, and that Chelsea result stands out because, as you say, we never used to win there. But to beat them at that point was a really good result. Because they were like a up and coming team, if you like, just before Mourinho. But to beat them away in a night game there, so that's probably one of the only times I can think that. You thought, we've exceeded expectations with an actual result there.
Yeah, I remember going to that game thinking we're going to lose here. I expect to lose, and we went and won. But we won like 3 out of 4, then lost at Tottenham, who they weren't a terrible team at the time, but they weren't. They were like hunting European football, but. They were never that good, it's not somewhere we should be losing. Then we drew 3 in a row after that Tottenham game. We drew 1-1 at Wolves, which is a terrible result. They scored in the 90th minute. 0-0 in the derby at Anfield, which that's not unprecedented exactly. That's quite a common result in the derby.
I'm almost certain that was a Saturday 3:00 game as well.
Probably. I remember that we won 1-0 at United on a Saturday 3:00.
Yeah, that was the Murphy game, was it? Penalty, yeah.
So then we beat Man City, we drew with Leeds, we lost to Southampton. There's no consistency. The only consistency is that it's inconsistent. We got bundled out of the UEFA Cup. We beat Levski Sofia 6-2 on aggregate, and then a certain Didier Drogba equalised late on at Anfield for Marseille.
See, even there you can see the UEFA Cup declining in standards, can't you? Considering
100%,
we beat 3 years before to get to where we were, and you're going on about like teams like Bucharest, Ljubljana, Levski Sofia, and then obviously we come up against Marseille. Then the Drogba just tore us to bits. I remember, yeah. We
could not handle him.
No. But yeah, it's just even then UEFA, and that was like 20 odd years ago. It's it was like a prestigious competition. You were nearly the best in your country, but by that point it was just that they started messing around with all the competitions, and that was never the same, was it?
It was never the same after they started turfing Champions League teams. That was what started the decline of the UEFA Cup, in my opinion, anyway. We did nothing in the domestic cups. We lost 1-0 at Portsmouth.
Well, guess who scored that game? Do you know who scored? I remember because I was there. It was a Sunday afternoon. Do you know who scored?
What, in the 5th round replay or at Anfield?
Yeah. The Portsmouth away when they knocked us out the cup.
Oh, that would be our esteemed release clause nonce. Sporting director or whatever title it is.
Yes, it was, yeah. Dickie Hughes himself, the man.
Yeah. Oh, well, if it's not...
Causing us fucking shit 20 odd years ago as well.
I know, yeah. He must have had a release clause then as well, because that's the only thing he can ever hit. Any kind of negotiating and everything comes grinding to a halt. In fact, I'm going to take a little pause there from this season, John, just to breaking news. It's Romano certified, unfortunately, this, so it obviously is real. It looks like Mo is going to Trabzonspor. Oh, God.
What?
Yeah. I think that's about probably the level he's at, John. I'm not surprised.
It's just the location more to me. I just had him... I don't know, I mean, Turkey, it's not like... I don't know. If it was going to be one of a Turkish club, I thought it would have been one of the big two, if you like. Galatasaray or Fenerbahce, or at a push, Besiktas, but Trabzonspor. Even Roy Hodgson called it a famous result when we beat them, to be fair.
Yeah, we just need Suey to go and plant a flag in the centre circle or something now.
Yeah, that shocked me, though. I thought I had him. Yeah, I just didn't have him going there, to be honest with you, now.
One standout result in the rest of the season, John, I remember, apart from losing 1-0 at Anfield to Sean fucking Bartlett again, is being 2-1 up at Arsenal at half time.
I was at that game with Dave. Me and Dave went down for that on the coach, yeah.
And then obviously Henry went through the gears, took the game away from us. I remember Houllier saying after the game words to the effect of, "No one else has beaten Arsenal this season. I don't know why we're expected to." And we were in full on. It was getting. It was close to Easter. It was just this is a nightmare. We lost the next game at home to Charlton, and then we finished unbeaten for the rest of the season. Newcastle. I remember all this through the uni. I was at uni at the time. And I remember cheering on Southampton in a 3-3 draw. I think it was a 3-3 draw with Newcastle in the midweek, which basically ended Newcastle's hopes of catching us, because you didn't want that to go to a last day shootout, which finished as a draw, but it was a dead game. There was nothing riding on it for either team. So it's the end of the season. We've got into the top four. How was the atmosphere? I didn't get to many games that season because I was at uni.
It was just flat then, yeah. I'd say Charlton had beaten us at home. It just felt. I'd say if you could sort of pin it down to a season, it'd be like last season. Every game was flat. There was, there was a bit of apathy, borderline. Not to the extent we got last season, when fans were just starting to get a bit angry at certain things going on and that, but. Yeah, it was one of the... Because at that point you're thinking, is Houllier going to go at the end of the season? It was very uncertain, even then, because he had that famous press conference, didn't he, around
Not
that
under
time?
me.
So,
not under me.
Not under me, going back to the 60s and the 70s or whatever it was. Yeah. I mean, and you could clearly see then, I mean, I think the large swathes of the press had sort of turned against him. Become very confrontational, whether this was a result of what he went through.
I think so.
Yeah, I mean, he was always so measured and together, wasn't he? He was always sort of in control of a lot of what he was saying. He always felt reassured when he'd say things, even after losses. And, he just had that sort of gentlemanly manner about him. And he just become a bit sort of belligerent and snappy, and you were like, wow. And, you don't want to sort of have any bad feelings towards any Liverpool manager. At that point it just become untenable. But the only thing was, because of who was the person at the top of the club at that point and what happened when Houllier came in with the joint manager farce, it's like, is this decision actually going to be made for us? That was the main concern for me at the time. You've got Steve Morgan, got the old Red Row Homes. Doesn't that seem a lifetime ago now? Steve Morgan, there's lumberjack and coat, and the club's worth what was he 50 times or what it would be back then, or whatever it'll be.
7 billion, isn't it, with the rumoured takeover?
Yeah, I mean, back then he probably would have been able to buy the club for what, 50, 60 million, I don't know, whatever it would have been, but yeah, so it's obviously a different time, but yeah, you were just hoping that the people at the top are going to make the change, but you didn't have any faith that that was going to be the case. And my overriding memory when it happened was just relief. It was like, oh, it's over, thank God. It's like, you know, it's, you know, you felt sorry for him in terms of what he'd been through. You know, he nearly lost his life managing our football club. But it's a results business ultimately, and it just couldn't continue. It was... It's just become absolutely untenable at the time.
It had, and I think like there was kind of no kind of obvious reason for him to continue. And as well, I think the club, and I've got lots of criticisms about how things are at the moment, but the club actually acted quite decisively in that they could see that there were young managers coming through.
Yeah.
That kind of 20-year era of the super manager. And we identified, like, obviously, Shitcourt was one of them. And we identified that Benitez was one of them. And for all of his flaws, and I'm sure we'll do a podcast about that at some point, you know, like, for all of his flaws, like, Benitez was one of those super managers. It went on to win the European
it was
Cup
exciting when you found out who was coming in. You're like, wow, what an point. But that's ambition, and you're like, okay, we still have got that thing about us where we do want to be competitive and challenge for the trophies and going and getting a 2-time La Liga winning manager who won the UEFA Cup as well. I get up against, like, you know, teams with more money and stuff in Spain, and he was just, you know, you'd seen that season, hadn't you, or the year before, as Valencia side had, you know, played us off the park twice. So you're thinking there, obviously that must have struck a chord with the you know, the people in power at the club. Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah, obviously we'd had that close experience with the Valencia team as well in the Champions League. So yeah, it was. I was very sad when he left. I always felt like it was the right time, because that season was. It wasn't as bad in my opinion as the season before, but it was pretty.
Points wise, it was like, but yeah,
points wise it was,
yeah.
But like when I look at like. But ultimately, we got into the top four. Like, again, it reminds me a lot of this season. A lot of this. We've just about got what we need to do. It's now time to make the change. I don't think there was anyone who wanted him to stay at that point.
No.
And it's sad. It was sad. There was no kind of joy in it. It's just like a point comes, Gerard, where a point comes, and we're at that point.
I mean, there was periods in that season when I had started to resent him, and I didn't like doing that. But I mean, you know, you go in the game, you go for the game for, you know, it's probably the same at Slot last season. And we've all said, you know, Slot's a Premier League winning manager, but you started to resent him last season for a multitude of reasons. And back then, it was the same about Gerard as well. It was like the things he was coming out with were just absolutely baffling.
Just
after games,
we've turned the corner.
Yeah, that's it. It's sort of those just things he was saying that just weren't tallying up to what you were actually seeing on the pitch. And I get managers are sort of, you know, they're quite one-eyed and stuff, and you know, but he was insulting our intelligence. I felt like a fair bit that season, gaslighting us. You know, people have said the same about Slot last season, gaslighting you know, the fans into believing certain things when you know it's not true. So the two seasons are pretty similar. I think even the points total, 60 points. You know, we've got a Spanish manager coming in as well. I think it was 60 points we got this season just gone anyway. I'm almost certain it was. So there are sort of similarities where, you know, obviously, you know, Slot wasn't here as long as Gerard was, and I think Gerard's influence over the club was far, far greater than what Slot's was. You know, at the end of the day, the way you look at Houllier now, it's sort of he dragged the club into the modern era at the time. You know, it was sort of the training facilities, the culture, and winning. Probably the best sort of eulogy you can give him is that we won the Champions League the year after. You know, majority of them were his players, and you know, the players, the Carragher and stuff, they wanted them in the dressing room after the game to sort of celebrate that, and you know, they haven't forgotten the journey started many years before to get us where, you know, to what we ended up doing in Istanbul. Because without Houllier, I don't think there'd have been in Istanbul.
Not a chance.
Even though Rafa, deserves all the credit in the world for winning the European Cup. Of course he does, but Houllier sort of put the wheels in motion for that to happen. Bit like, you could argue that, like Shankly doing what he did to an extent, on a grander scale, if you like, to where we ended up being in the 70s. The foundations were being met back then. Shankly was up in the culture and the standards of the club. He wanted, things putting in place to make us competitive. The board was sort of quite passive at the time and stuff, and I say totally different generations, but the fundamentals are still the same.
Yeah, absolutely right. I think, and as well, when you look back, when he left, it was mutually consented, wasn't he? And he left. Like he had a year out the game and then took over Lyon.
Yeah.
He did a double with Lyon in 2 consecutive seasons. Now, that was probably a given at the time, because they'd won like 4 straight before he joined them, I think, because that was the Paul Le Guen team that swept all before it in France. But he left there. He had a spell back as a technical advisor for France, because he was one of Domenech's kind of proponents. But he actually ended up at Villa, if you remember.
Yeah,
and the fans didn't take to him, and it was very uncomfortable. I hated reading what I was seeing. Lots of kind of complaining from Villa fans about the way it went, and they actually went after their own manager. I remember it well. It was uncomfortable, and I was never happy with it.
The thing is, sometimes I think what did we say? I think managers are judged too quickly. I mean, he wasn't there long, and I don't think Villa had any raging success after Houllier left, for instance. Did they?
No, but they got relegated.
Well, this is it. From what I remember, Houllier was trying to bring through some of the younger players at Villa. I mean, but he was allowed the time to do that with us. That goes into what I was saying in one of the last pods, where managers just don't get the time now than what he would have done. Yeah, results might have been a bit iffy at Villa, but it's easy to get written off a lot easier now, don't they? After a few iffy results early on. I'm not trying to say Villa fans are right or wrong or whatever, but just a more general sort of point of consensus, if you like, is that he was allowed to do that here. Whereas, I said now, if that was happening here now, would he? Obviously the media, there's a lot bigger, the press and all that, there's a lot more scrutiny and stuff than there was back then. I would fear for him now if he had the start that he made here now to what he did back in the late 90s.
Yeah, and as well, he left the Villa job early because he had more heart problems.
Health problems, yeah.
And unfortunately, that was what took his life.
So what year was he at Villa then? Was it about 2012, would it have been, something like that?
2010.
2010, okay, right.
I will just
he passed away in 2020.
He did. Yeah, kind of like 2010, 2011. He was at Villa. He left Villa in the April because Gary Matt took over for the rest of the season. But he was again not a well man again. There's all this sort of talk about the banner with all the managers on and all that, but it's only for managers who've won the league or the European Cup and that. But if ever a manager should be on it, in my opinion, you've just got to make allowances. It should be Houllier. I mean, he was a generation-defining manager in terms of, I say, we dragged the club into the modern era, and he brought the younger generation success that they'd only seen on videotapes or whatever, VHS tapes, and they'd heard the granddads or the dads talking about. So, he gave us, his teams gave us some highs that, even today, that's why we're doing a 3-series pod about him, because of that. Yeah, absolutely right, John. For me, he should be on the banner. And it sounds daft, it might sound daft to other fans talking about someone being on a banner or not. For me, he absolutely should. He definitely should be on the banner. All he achieved with us was absolutely incredible, and yeah, like he was in danger of it being turning a bit nasty because the drop off was so profound. He was never the same after his illness.
No.
And sadly, it was that took his life. He was 73 when he died, and what broke my heart about that, John, he died in December 2020 when stadiums were closed.
Yeah.
So in years gone by, there would have been a really emotional minute silence. There would have been banners. There would have been Gerard Houllier songs, and he got nothing. And I hated that. That made me so sad. Obviously, it was a sad time, and the whole world was in a sad place. But I hated that. That was really, really saddening to me. He deserved so much better than that. But obviously, it's no one's fault. But we've never truly gotten to celebrate his life and his time at the club the way that we wanted to and the way we should have because of that. And that's I find that very, very saddening.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, it's just one of those. As Del Boy says in a Only Fools and Horses, a drop stitch in life's tapestry, if you like.
Yeah. I thought you were going to call someone a dipstick or something.
Well, plenty of people we can call dipsticks, don't Richard Hughes.
Anyway, John, it's epidemic. So I think, is there any kind of... I've kind of made my closing comments about Houllier there. I'll never forget him. I'll never forget all he achieved. I'll never forget who he brought through. We had some very fun times together. It was absolutely the right time to move on when he did. As sad as it was the right thing to do at the time. Any kind of closing comments from you?
Yeah, basically, yes. At the end of the day, he was, as I said earlier, era-defining manager. Cup finals, trophies that we'd not seen for X amount of years when our rivals were sweeping up everything before them. Just gave us that hope and belief that we could compete at the top end of the league, challenging, winning big finals in Cardiff and European finals and stuff. And as I say, it did culminate in Istanbul, which is like his greatest legacy, if you like that. I say, if he wasn't our manager, we don't win that European Cup in Istanbul. It's that simple, in my opinion. Despite obviously Benitez being brilliant at what he was doing himself. It's all down to Houlier's sort of legacy and how he changed everything at the club from top to bottom. That made it. I know the squad wasn't up to scratch when Benitez took over, and it was Houlier's squad, but Houllier set that foundation in place where it even made it a possibility. If we're getting a sort of bog standard manager who I don't want to sound sort of, what's the word? If we get like a British manager at the time who just keeps things ticking over, if you like, and doesn't look to change everything at the club like Houllier did, but like Wenger did at Arsenal as well, then history could have looked a lot different, is how I see it.
So what you're saying, John, is if we would have hired Steve Wigley...
Where'd that name come from? Steve Wigley.
I'm just thinking of random English. I was going to say Les Reed, but... yeah.
Who was that Blackburn manager, the Scottish one? Who was... what was his name? Scottish fella? Steve Reed? Steve...
I'm sure
Steve Keane.
Oh, Steve Keane, yeah. I was going to say, I'm sure Tony Parks was his assistant at some point. Tony Parks was everyone's assistant at Blackburn. Is he still going, Tony Parks? I don't think he is. I seem to remember him passing away.
Yeah, I think he did pass away, yeah.
He was long serving. He's actually earlier this year. It's actually just
see, I even think if we'd have brought Dalglish, if we'd have brought Dalglish back at that time, we wouldn't have done what we did. It's not a slight on Kenny at all, but Houllier was the right person at the right time for so many different reasons. It's like he wasn't afraid to be confrontational with players. There's battles going on behind the scenes when he took over, and he took them head on and weeded out all the the trouble causers, if you like, and the players who didn't want to obviously be here, and weren't showing a good attitude, professional attitude around the place. They were gone, as you said earlier. It was ruthless, and that was exactly what we needed. And, would Kenny have been that type of manager? I'm not too sure. If he'd have took over in '98 just after, because Kenny was at Newcastle and he'd just been sacked by Newcastle. But if it would have been him, and that's like summer of '98, say.
Yeah, I mean, Kenny had another go at it as well, didn't he? Obviously, 2011.
Yeah, I think that was more just like a sort of a bridge and a gap, wasn't it, to what FSG wanted, really. I mean, you can argue how he was sacked or whatever, but you did know it wasn't going to be anything long term. It was fine for what it was at the time, won a trophy again, but yeah, I just think Houllier was just the perfect fit at the perfect time, and it led to, as I say, where we ended up, 7 years later. Yep.
Incredible what was it, 98 to 2000, incredible 6 years. He revolutionised, modernised the club, brought us to where we were, and I will certainly never forget that 2001 season will be always my favourite. Even if we won the quadruple now or a double, that would be my favourite season, because it was the first season in my life that I remember watching football that Liverpool meant something.
Yeah.
And Liverpool mattered. I'll never forget that feeling, and how incredible it felt on the Alaves game, and the Arsenal game will always be my top memory because I was there. That was the big one for me. I think, John, we've had a little conversation, haven't we, about where the time team stuff goes from here.
Just before we got into Houllier stuff off with the "Who let the Reds out? Houllier?"
Yeah. Who let the Krauts out?
Just to end it off on that note, yeah.
We've been talking, John. Obviously, the season starts soon. Whether or not Liverpool have got a squad by then, I'm not sure. The idea for us is to do it during international breaks, and it's the first international window season, isn't it? This time, the first international window is the 21st of September to the 6th of October, I think. So we will look to come back, but I think there's only so many seasons or matches that we can cover, I think, John. So what we've talked about doing is having a podcast about one really good player and one really bad one. For example, Fernando Torres and Sean Dundee on the podcast. Call it Jules and Jabronis or something like that. I don't know. Have a think about it.
Yeah, we'll definitely get heroes and villains.
Watch out, Dundee's about. Watch out, Dundee's about. You'd better watch out, cause Dundee's about. And now I've got Jamie Beadle jokes in my head. However, I do have to finish off with a joke, John, as is tradition. So let me do a play on words one, I think. Let me have a think. Okay, what do you call a parrot that is suffering from muscle spasms?
Oh, go on.
Politics.
Oh God, just get better and better, Dan.
I've got another one like that as well. Give me a word that describes a gentlemanly goose.
Go on.
Propaganda.
Oh, Dan. Oh, yeah.
I can keep on going. Keep on going. This is not the jokes podcast.
Yeah, you set up your own little spin-off of that alone, mate.
But we'll finish it off with who's the coolest person in the hospital?
Go on.
The ultrasound guy.
Oh.
Right, so that was a very special project to me, talking about Houlier's years. I've wanted to do that for a long time. So thank you, John, for joining me tonight.
Been a pleasure, mate. An absolute pleasure.
I'll get this over to the hardest working man in football now, so hopefully we'll have that out by the end of the week. And we might have actually tried to make a signing by then, but I won't hold my fucking breath. It's doing my head in. Really doing my head in. But this is all about Houllier, not Richard Hughes and his I'm doing it again. I'm just going after the things. I can't help myself. Right, we're signing off now. Thank you very much, everyone, for listening. We'll catch you again soon. And look out for the TLW season preview, which I've no doubt will be coming up soon.